Family dinners were supposed to feel safe. That was what my mother used to say when we were growing up, back when money was tight but love was generous. A long table, shared plates, voices overlapping, no one counting who ate more or less. When my sister Nadia invited us to dinner that evening, I tried to hold on to that memory. I wanted to believe that, for a few hours, we could feel like a family again. The restaurant she chose was the kind that made you hesitate before stepping inside. The lights were low and golden, reflecting off polished wood and crystal glasses. The menus were thick and heavy, printed on glossy paper that whispered luxury. I sat down with my son, Ion, smoothing his hair as he stared around with wide eyes. He leaned close and whispered that it looked like a place only rich people went to. I smiled and told him we were lucky to be there, reminding him to say thank you and stay close to me. Nadia arrived last, dressed perfectly, her confidence filling the room before she even sat down. Her husband followed, distracted, already scrolling through his phone. Their children dropped into their chairs, loud and restless, as if the restaurant belonged to them. Nadia barely glanced at me before waving the waiter over, her voice quick and decisive. She ordered expensive steaks for her kids, speaking the prices like they meant nothing, like money was just another thing she had outgrown. The waiter turned toward me, pen ready. I opened my mouth, but Nadia laughed softly and said, "Oh, we didn't order for your son." She said it casually, as if she were commenting on the weather. The words cut through the table, sharp and unexpected. I felt Ion freeze beside me. He looked from her to me, his face full of confusion, his small hands curling into his lap. For a moment I couldn't breathe. I forced a smile, the kind you wear to protect your child, and told the waiter we would order separately. Nadia shrugged, her attention already drifting back to her children, who were talking excitedly about their steaks. No one else spoke. No one questioned it. The silence felt like agreement. I ordered the cheapest pasta on the menu for Ion. When it arrived, he ate quietly, carefully, like he was afraid of taking up too much space. I watched him and felt something break inside me. Sitting at that beautiful table, surrounded by family, my son had never felt more alone. The drive home was silent in a way that felt heavier than shouting. The city lights slid past the car windows, blurring into long streaks of white and gold, but Ion sat perfectly still in his seat, his gaze fixed straight ahead. I kept stealing glances at him, searching for a sign that he was okay, that the dinner hadn't touched him as deeply as it had cut me. But children carry hurt differently. They tuck it away, letting it grow quiet and sharp inside them. When we reached our apartment, I helped him out of the car and unlocked the door. The familiar smell of home wrapped around us, simple and warm, but it didn't ease the tightness in my chest. Ion slipped off his shoes and stood there for a moment, hesitating, as if he had something important to say but wasn't sure how. "Mama," he finally whispered, his voice barely louder than the hum of the refrigerator. Did I do something wrong? The question shattered me. I knelt in front of him, took his small face in my hands and shook my head. I told him no again and again, until the word felt strong enough to replace the doubt in his eyes. I explained that sometimes grown-ups forget how powerful their words can be, and that what happened had nothing to do with him. He nodded slowly, but I knew the explanation could not erase the feeling of being unwanted. That night, after he fell asleep, I sat alone in the dark living room, replaying every moment of the dinner, Nadia's careless smile, the way she avoided my eyes, the way everyone else stayed quiet, as if silence was easier than kindness. I remembered all the times I had shared what little I had with her when we were younger, never imagining that success could make someone forget where they came from. In the days that followed, Nadia acted as if nothing had happened. She sent messages about shopping, about vacations, about her children's achievements. I responded politely but briefly. I wasn't angry in the loud, burning way people expect. I was tired, tired of explaining my worth, tired of shrinking to keep the peace. Instead, I focused on Ion. We cooked together in our small kitchen, laughing when things went wrong, celebrating simple meals. Slowly, his smile returned, but I never forgot the way his shoulders had slumped at that table. Somewhere between washing dishes and packing lunches, I made a quiet promise to myself. I wouldn't seek revenge through cruelty. I would choose dignity, and when the time came, I would make sure my son understood that respect was not something you begged for, but something you showed through your actions. The invitation came months later, wrapped in cheer and confidence, as if nothing uncomfortable had ever happened. Nadia called one afternoon, her voice bright and practiced, announcing a celebration at her house. Her husband had received a promotion, she said, and the family simply had to come together to mark the occasion. Just a small dinner, she added lightly, though I could already imagine the carefully arranged table and the unspoken competition that always followed her gatherings. I ended the call with polite words and sat quietly for a long moment, my phone resting in my hand. Part of me wanted to refuse. Avoidance would have been easy, almost comforting, but another part of me, stronger and calmer, knew that this was not something I needed to run from. I agreed to attend, not to impress anyone, and not to reopen old wounds, but because I felt ready to stand in my own truth. The night of the dinner, Ion dressed carefully, choosing his cleanest shirt. I watched him in the mirror, noticing how much he had grown, not just in height but in confidence. He didn't ask nervous questions this time. He simply took my hand as we walked to the car, trusting me in a way that filled me with quiet strength. Nadia's house was glowing when we arrived, every light turned on, music floating through open windows. Inside, the table was set beautifully, plates arranged with intention, food laid out in generous portions. She greeted us with a brief look of surprise that quickly softened into a smile. "I'm glad you made it," she said, though her tone suggested she hadn't been sure we would. As the evening unfolded, guests filled their plates, praising the food and the house. Nadia moved through the room, soaking in the admiration. I watched her carefully, noticing how much effort went into being seen. When dessert was served and the room settled, I felt a gentle certainty rise inside me. This was the moment. I stood up slowly, my heart steady. I thanked Nadia for hosting and for bringing everyone together. Then, calmly, I spoke about family, about how meals are meant to nourish more than just the body. I didn't accuse or raise my voice. I simply told the truth, the kind that doesn't need sharp edges. I spoke about children and how deeply they feel what adults dismiss. I reached into my bag and placed a small envelope on the table. Inside was a gift meant to ensure that no child would ever feel forgotten at a family table again. The room fell silent, understanding settling in. Nadia's smile faltered, and in that quiet, the message landed exactly where it needed to. We left Nadia's house without drama, without raised voices or slammed doors. The night air felt cooler than when we had arrived, and for the first time in a long while, my chest felt light. Ion walked beside me, his hand tucked into mine, swinging slightly as if a weight he hadn't known how to name had finally been lifted. He didn't ask questions right away. He just smiled, a soft, relieved smile that told me he had understood more than I realized. In the car, as the engine hummed to life, he turned toward me. "Mama," he said quietly, "you didn't get angry, but everyone listened." His words stayed with me. I told him that strength doesn't always look like shouting, and that sometimes the calmest voice carries the farthest. He nodded thoughtfully, absorbing the lesson in his own way. Days passed, and the tension I had carried for months slowly loosened its grip. Nadia didn't call immediately. When she finally did, her voice lacked its usual sharp confidence. She spoke carefully, as if testing unfamiliar ground. She said she had been embarrassed that night, but more than that, she admitted she had been thoughtless. Her apology wasn't perfect. It came in pieces, mixed with excuses and pride. But it was real enough. I accepted it, not because she deserved instant forgiveness, but because I no longer needed to hold onto the hurt. Our relationship didn't magically return to what it once was. Instead, it settled into something quieter and more honest. Boundaries replaced expectations. I no longer chased her approval or measured myself against her success. I understood, finally, that respect begins where self-worth is protected. One evening, weeks later, I took Ion out to dinner. It wasn't an expensive place, just a small restaurant filled with warm light and the comforting noise of everyday life. We sat by the window and studied the menu together. He pointed excitedly at what he wanted, and I ordered without hesitation. When the food arrived, he ate freely, laughing, asking for more bread, completely at ease. I watched him, realizing that this was what mattered. Not proving a point to my sister, not winning some silent battle, but teaching my son that he belonged wherever kindness lived, that no one had the power to make him feel small unless he handed that power over. As we left the restaurant, Ian squeezed my hand and said, "I like eating with you, Mama." I smiled, feeling a quiet pride settle in my heart. The sweetest revenge was never about making someone else feel ashamed. It was about building a life where love, dignity, and belonging always had a seat at the table.